This is day one of our two-day summit. We're going to be here all day today till about 5 o'clock Central Time, and then all day tomorrow, much the same. So join us, tell your friends about it, and if they have as yet not joined, tell them to tune in. We'd love to have them be a part of it. So some great guests and more coming up.
Yeah, we've got one coming up right now. We
All
want to
right.
bring on Robert Lightfoot and Shelli Brunswick, two of our favorite people on the entire planet. They may be off planet, I don't know. So Shelli, it's so good to have you here. Thank you for your work with us and, of course, with the Space Foundation. And Robert, it's so wonderful to have you here. And without further ado, we're going to connect the two of you, and you guys are going to have a wonderful conversation.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure joining you, and I'm always honored to support America's Future Series. And I'm even more excited and honored to talk with Robert Lightfoot, who is a legend in the industry, and no surprise to everyone here, has been part of the space ecosystem for almost 30 years. I do want to do a special shout out, though, to all the sponsors that made this program possible. Their generous support has made this two-day conference complimentary to over 8,000 registrants. So congratulations, David, on all the amazing work you're doing with America's Future Series. Now, with that, I have the great privilege to introduce Robert Lightfoot, who, again, needs no introduction. He is the Executive Vice President of Lockheed Martin Space. In this role, he is responsible for leading the space business area, a more than $11 billion enterprise employing nearly 22,000 people in providing advanced technology systems for national security, civil, and commercial customers. Robert has spent more than 30 years at NASA and across the aerospace and defense industry. He's recognized as a change agent with a track record of setting an organization's vision for the future to enhance productivity and drive efficiencies while also promoting innovation, both through technology and new business models. Today, he leads the Lockheed Martin space team to challenge what's possible for the future of space by encouraging business transformation, technology demonstration, and new ways to support our customers' missions to protect, connect, and explore. Well, welcome, Robert. It's so great to be joining you virtually today.
Hey, Shelli, how you doing? Appreciate y'all having me.
Fantastic. It's such an honor for you to join us for America's Future Series. And we're going to start with the easy one. You're relatively new to Lockheed Martin. You transitioned out of NASA. So with that new role as the Executive Vice President at Lockheed Martin Space, can you tell us a little bit about your transition from NASA? And what are some of the key focus areas for Lockheed Martin Space?
Yeah, Shelli, it's been interesting. I've really enjoyed the transition. It's been a great opportunity for me to work with industry, probably from a different perspective, but also with a different set of customers too. You know, when at NASA, we did some work with the Department of Defense and the IC, part of our community, and now I get to do that every day, all three of them. And so it's kind of exciting from that standpoint, and just get to work with some great people across a pretty diverse portfolio, as you stated. For me, it gets me. Let's be focused on the visionaries. You mentioned them. You know, protect, connect, and explore. When I was at NASA, we did a lot around exploration, obviously, right? I mean, that was the big piece. That's where I worked with Lockheed Martin so much, and a lot of industry partners that we work with even today. And some bit on the connection side. We obviously use GPS a lot and things like that Lockheed Martin provides. But what I've really been able to see here, and is a big focus for us here at Lockheed, has been this. Truly appreciate what we deliver as an entire corporation and what we do for the nation and for the warfighter and for, frankly, our commercial civil side of the house. You know, when you look at one of the big focuses we have is 21st century security, and for us, that's what we define that kind of as how do we connect the entire ecosystem that we've all been part of, whether it's Lockheed Martin, whether it's other people's platforms, it doesn't really matter. How do we connect those in a way that gets the right data at the right time, you know, to the right location at any given time? And so leveraging the space domain for that is what I think is the most important way to do this. And I think that's the advantage for us having the Space Force, for us doing the joint all domain operations that we're working on, things like that. Lockheed Martin, to me, brings all that together, and has the opportunity to bring that together probably with the best sense of urgency that we can, whether it's across hypersonics, whether it's across communications, whether it's across early warning, all the different things that we're involved in. And it doesn't have to be our platform. We just have to be in a place where we can connect and So when you think about this protect, connect, and explore, the protect piece is really something that's really resonated with me, because at the end of the day, our job is to bring people home. And so all our systems are built so we bring our warfighters home, so we bring our astronauts home, so we bring people that are using our weather data home after a bad severe storm. And so it's an exciting opportunity for me, and the mission side of that is just what I get really excited about every day. And so it's been, the transition has been pretty easy, just because of the mission focus that we have. But it's also been fascinating and very interesting as we've gone through it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I will let our audience know, if we do have time, we'll do some Q&A as well. So please feel free to send your questions over. So Robert, we're in a very dynamic geopolitical environment right now. And this means that we must look at new ways of working to maintain U.S. global competitiveness. With that in mind, what are some of the strategies we all need to be considering to promote collaboration across the space sector?
Yeah, I tell you, it's a very interesting time for all of us, I think. Whether you're a new entrant into space or whether you're a traditional company like Lockheed Martin, collaboration is going to be key, because I think to bring the solutions that we need at the sense of urgency that our customers need those solutions brought, we got to collaborate. Everybody has their strengths they can bring in. And so what that drives for us is kind of an interesting, maybe a way to look at things differently than we have in the past. And think about how we can, how a partnership comes together to allow us to do things differently than we have in the past. In other words, don't do it all by myself. Let's go leverage the strengths that we have so that we can get the mission done, bring the solution, the best solution possible. And really, when you think about that, you get a very interesting way you get a different way to innovate. You get a different way to look at cybersecurity. You get all the strengths that you bring in your supply chain. If you can leverage that whole supply chain in a different way, bring them as part of that mission partner, you'll get a much more integrated and better solution. A couple of probably specific examples that I think of for better collaboration across the industry is really kind of setting some standards. How do you set some standards so that we can all operate? If you look at one of the things that we've talked about recently at Lockheed Martin, we've got this Aspen port, which allows us to do, it's an open source, non-proprietary interface standard to support on-orbit docking within the industry. So anybody can use this port, and you can, and then it doesn't matter what the platform is. You put this port on that platform, and it allows you to really almost change the use of a particular capability. And as long as you set that standard that everybody meets, and then you can do that. The other thing I think that's really become important is the use of the digital tools. And when we look at it in terms of Lockheed Martin, the digital twins are allowing us to do things that we probably didn't leverage before. And so we're talking about maturity models. How do you define what the level of your digital twins are? I use OSIRIS-REx, which was a mission that we did to go to the asteroid Bennu. We did that for NASA, and when we got to Bennu, if anybody remembers, it was not the smooth asteroid that everybody thought it was from the radar imaging and all the cross sections that we had before we got there. It was a pretty rocky surface with school bus size boulders sitting there. And so when we picked the spot that we wanted to go to land, when NASA did, we were able to use the digital twin to do practice runs. We did dozens of practice runs to make sure we could bring the spacecraft in between these big boulders, get down there and make the tag sample. And we were within a few centimeters of our target. I don't think we could have done that without leveraging these digital twins. So to me, that's another case where if you can define what is your digital twin? Is it where's the maturity model that goes in there? And I think that's an area where we've been able to leverage between the common ports that you can put on spacecraft all the way to the digital twins that people can use. We can also learn lessons from other industries. I think sometimes we can get insular in the space environment, and I think some of the things that we've seen lately is other industries come into play. I mean, we're talking about using. We've already got an agreement with General Motors, for instance, for a lunar rover, and they've got, General Motors is sitting there with an EV strategy. Well, what do we want on the moon? We want electrical. That's what we want, and so there's a great opportunity for leverage some of the technologies that they've put in place. And then finally, how do you think about space more as some different business models, right? There are different business models you can bring into play. what about services, right? How do you think about it in terms of instead of selling a platform or a spacecraft? How do you sell service? We look at firefighting as a service as an example, where you leverage all the information we're getting from space to actually help firefighters and here on Earth terrestrially. But also, how do you do that from a perspective of, say, around the moon? Can we provide communication services from the moon that everybody can leverage, again, as a service? So it takes a lot, right? And I think we all have to be a little more flexible, a little more adaptable than maybe we've been in the past as we look at that. So that's just my thoughts from a Lockheed perspective, Shelli.
Well, I think those are fabulous thoughts. So thank you for sharing them. Now, what I'll share with the audience is most people know Space Foundation for our annual symposium, and that is one of our main divisions. But we actually have 3 divisions. We have our Symposium 365, which is where Space Symposium resides, and our famous The Space Report, which, by the way, will be coming out in the next couple weeks with the 2021 Global Space Economy number. We also have our division called the Center for Innovation and Education, which is all about lifelong learning, K through 12, teaching teachers, and entrepreneurial facilitation, which we're grateful for Lockheed Martin's support. But that third pillar, Global Alliance, that's all about building partnerships and collaborations. Lockheed Martin Space has a very broad portfolio and contributes to missions across multiple domains. Can you share how you're partnering with others, perhaps non-traditional partners, to bring new capabilities to joint all-domain operations and the future of the 21st century security?
Yeah, you know, Shelli, I think, as I said a minute ago, I think these partnerships are going to be important because there's people that have capability that maybe we haven't developed yet. They may be ahead of us, but we have scale. I mean, that's to me, that's the critical sweet spot for us at Lockheed Martin is how do we leverage some of those capabilities they have to get the mission solutions there. But let me touch on why that's important real quick. I think for us, we're not competing. I mean, yeah, we compete against each other. There's lots of us on this phone call, I'm sure that we compete with, but you know, we're all really competing with time. If you've heard the previous speakers, there's a sense of urgency here. I think General Hyten said it well. The threat is there. It is real, and we got to get out of our own way sometimes, right? And so for me, it's all about operating with a sense of urgency. You know, every day matters, and so I tell the team, I'm not competing with company fill in the blank. I'm competing with time. And so how do we so if you have that as your mantra, then if you want to go faster, you want to do things quicker, then maybe you look at other people to be a part of your team. And so that's where the non-traditional partnerships come in. I talked about General Motors, and you just get such rapid evolution when you look at other people. They bring a different way for your thinking. General Motors is a great example. There's some other examples we're doing with Verizon and folks like that in the 5G arena. Just a lot of that we're starting to look at, just again, non-traditional partners for us, and people that have, you know, maybe they don't know the space domain that well, but maybe they have a technology that works. And so we're doing that, and we're even doing that inside Lockheed Martin across our different business areas. I think the other thing that we're poking on a little bit, and this gets into some of the non-traditional partnerships as well, is we want a cadence of technology demonstration missions. So when I think about that, when I walk into our customers, I don't want them to have to worry about whether the technology is ready to go or not. I want to have already proven that, and at least at some level. And so when we look at some of the things we're doing with prototypes and leveraging our technology demonstrations, it allows us to go quickly, iterate quickly, and I think we call it fail fast, fail forward, right? Or fail smart, right? How do you do it? And you can do it in a technology demonstration mode. Like General Hyten said earlier, you don't want to do that on a critical mission, but you can do it when you're in the technology prototyping mode. So for us, right, we're using we have a program called Pony Express that's demonstrating small satellite technologies. We're doing that ourselves, and what we can do is then bring that to the customer and say, hey, it's already flown, it's already worked. We know it is. Your risk is limited because we've taken some of that out. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're building a new satellite bus, medium class satellite bus called LM400 that we're investing ourselves. Well, I need to launch that. So what we're doing is we're looking at some of the new launch providers. We're going to use ABL as an opportunity to launch that for us. And we've entered a long-term agreement with them that allows us to actually leverage their ability, their agility that they have to launch from anywhere that they want to launch from and prove our technologies as well. So it just becomes again, this, you look for that sweet spot of agility and maybe new technology from a different partner, and then you bring the scale that we have as Lockheed Martin, and it becomes a pretty good opportunity for us. And I think that's the strength for us to get things done.
Absolutely fantastic. And I do want to highlight that when you bring in those non-traditional partners like GM, it really helps underrepresented groups or diversity see that space is really part of our everyday lives. And there may be a way for them to participate in the space ecosystem. So I am using your example of partnering with General Motors for the future lunar rover as one of my examples when I go out and talk to people, so people can, and kids can see that how space is really part of everyday companies that they may have not thought as part of the space industry. So thank you for that great example. So I'm going to pivot into cyber a little bit. And I know this is a space conference, but there is no space without cyber. So for all our attendees today, they may support different levels of cybersecurity based on the mission. With that in mind, can you share some insights on how cyber resiliency will continue to shape the space industry?
Oh yeah, this is a critical one for us. I mean, I think when I look at what we do, cyber has to come first for us. The systems we build, it can't be something you think about at the end of an activity, right? It's something you got to bake in from the start. And frankly, when you do that, it's not as, I remember hearing when cyber first became an issue, it was like, well, that's an unfunded mandate, right? And I can, nobody's paying for that. So, but if you do it from the start, you can do this fairly easily. And you've got to have the capability and the standards in place that allow you to actually perform this way, right? So when I think about what we do, from our perspective, is I think we have tremendous expertise here in cyber resiliency. Our systems have to. It's not because we don't do it because we're good at it. We do it because we have to. It's table stakes, right? That you've got to have that in some of the systems that we put in place. And I think that's where you see some of the activities where our customers are using commercial data and things like that. There's places for that, right? There's no. I don't want to argue that against that. However, but there's some things that have to be so tight. So you got to have your stuff together when it comes to the cyber side of the house, and it allows us to really, in my opinion, have that at the top of the mind, is that these systems have to be hardened against cyber attack, and we lean into that expertise that we have, right, and deliver. So I think you can have this hybrid infrastructure if you look at the total mission and the total thing that's trying to be done, not just the individual platform. It's the resiliency of the whole system. You can look at it that way, where you have pieces that might not be as resilient, as long as you've got it protected somehow. From that standpoint, you share the data in a smart way. You know how to turn that data into actionable intelligence that your customers can use, and it's protected, right? And you can do it quickly. And I think that's, to me, with space becoming a contested battlefield, we're going to need that kind of resiliency across the board. And so to me, that's where cyber is almost like, again, it's almost like systems engineering. You've got to have it in any system that you put in place. And it's got to be at a level that you're comfortable with. And again, back to standards, what level are we going to be from a cyber protection standpoint? And I know the next panel is going to talk about this quite a bit. It's just critical. And I feel very, not comfortable. I'll never be comfortable when it comes to cyber, but I feel confident that we've got the expertise that allows us to build those into the systems. And it's just something we got to pay attention to as we help, by the way, some of our new partners, some of our new entrants, we're actually helping them with what this means. And by the way, it trickles into your supply chain. Second, third tier, fourth tier suppliers have to be aware of the vulnerabilities they can create just by being in our system. So it's a tough, I'm sure it's tough for all of industry, not just Lockheed Martin, but it's a tough thing that we have to pay attention to, and critical to the success of some of these systems. Because once you put them up there, you can't bring them back down and work on them, right? They're kind of there.
Absolutely. And that's a good point, that when we started putting satellites up, they did not have that hardened features and protection. We thought space was a benign environment, but over the course of decades, it has become more contested, congested, and competitive. And General Raymond was on the Sunday morning talk shows highlighting the importance of Space Force and the activities that we're doing to protect those satellites in orbit, to ensure that there's free navigation and continuing the American way of life. So thank you for that.
Well, and Shelli, one thing real quick, I think probably this community, everybody on this call probably understands it, but I'm not sure the general public realizes the dependency we have on space in a given day. We used to talk about, when I was at NASA, we used to talk about a day without space. could you do that? But it would probably the whole financial system of the world would collapse if we tried to do that. But that's what's important, right? It's not just for military. It's not just for national security reasons. Financial systems, all these things are so dependent, and that's why the cyber piece has just become so important for us to maintain that.
Absolutely. One of the presentations I like to talk about, I call it "What Space Got to Do with It," and it's really going out there and helping average citizens understand how important space is to us every day. And when you think about the pandemic, during 1918, you couldn't work from home or go to school from home. That's because the critical space infrastructure that allowed work from home, school from home, did not exist in 1918. So those are all things that have come along since, President Kennedy's famous speech in 1962 that said, "We choose to go to the moon in this era." All that innovative technology came from that amazing generation that created that, which is going to lead me to my next question. I'm going to take you back to NASA now. Over the weekend, there's been a lot of great news stories about the James Webb Space Telescope. My understanding is some amazing pictures are going to get released tomorrow about the universe. What are your thoughts about those images coming out and the great work you did at NASA and the team at NASA for bringing James Webb Space Telescope to life?
Really excited to see what they're going to be, right? For a lot of reasons, right? And when you sit back and think about, you're going to look backwards 14, 15 billion years. I mean, you just have to stop for a minute and think about what that means. 14 or 15 billion years. It means that light, whatever the sensor picked up, that we're going to see, which I'm like everybody else. I'm super excited to see what it's going to be. Was emitted 14 or 15 billion years ago. That's just hard to even comprehend, and it just shows the vastness of the universe. And I think we had a lot of challenges getting that spacecraft ready to go, and I'm hopeful to see, super excited to see what's going to come out of it. And I think it'll change. It'll do like Hubble did. It'll change the textbooks. It'll change what we know. And how can you not be excited to be part of something that rewrites textbooks? I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And I get really excited to think about those kind of moments that we have we call it. I actually call it civilization changing moments. And we'll see what comes out of this. But I think it's going to be. I'm excited to see what they show, and golly, over the next years, it's going to be just amazing what we get out of that instrument.
Fantastic. So I'm going to stay on the NASA theme. I have a question. Dwayne, thank you for your question. What new Lockheed Martin technologies will be available to support NASA's scientific initiatives in our civilian space program?
Well, there's several that we're working on, and most of them are driven usually by by what the customer's looking for. It'd be nice if we could use the same technologies over and over again, but we always want to get better. There's a lot of things we're doing. I'll tell you on the next. That's just one example. The next GOES satellite that we're building for NASA and NOAA. We're going to have a coronagraph on that particular vehicle on the nadir deck, and so we're super excited about that. That's an addition to we haven't done that before, and the teams just did a phenomenal job figuring out how to place that on the spacecraft. So that'll give us a totally different look at things. And so I'm excited about that as a next step. But that's just one example. There's several. We're always developing new sensors. We've got a sensor we're working on as we speak to basically be the next generation lightning mapper for us to understand again the origins of lightning. What does it do? Anything we can learn about that, because it starts wildfires, it hits houses, it gives us predictive nature of severe weather. So those are just a couple of examples. One of the other things we've been doing is we've added in an Amazon. We made a deal with Amazon on Orion, and we've got basically think about Amazon Alexa in space that we're going to have when we fly Orion. So this will be a way for us to start testing the kind of artificial intelligence, machine learning we're going to need when we do deep space exploration with humans going forward. So we're excited about that too as we move forward.
Thank you. And I do have one more question if you have a couple more minutes.
Sure.
Wonderful. I'm going to pivot to DOD. We received a great question from Michael. So thank you, Michael. Given the DoD desire to drive the cost of satellites down, how do we balance this desire requirement with the challenges of today's supply chain and the need for more exquisite engineering for larger satellites?
Yeah, I think the main thing we do there is and what we're doing at Lockheed Martin is we're looking at all the data we've been taking. Think about how long we've been building spacecraft. We're starting to look at the data now, and some of the requirements that we get sometimes that maybe are not as maybe not necessary. So how do you look at that and use data to maybe drive down the types of things that you're doing routinely? An example that we used recently is we ran the one of the last GPS satellites. We cut the test time by 40% for that, all because we had a partnership with our customer to say, hey, when we do these tests, it shows us this. When we do these tests, it doesn't show us anything and hasn't for decades. So can we not do that test anymore? Or we pick it up over here in this test. Again, it gets to taking a little risk, right? Because maybe you pick it up later than you want to in a test. But that's how you do it. We're gonna have to take a couple of risks, just like General Hyten said, to allow us to move faster. But I think that's just one example. But we have I don't know what's bigger than terabytes, but we have so much data that we processed for years on this hardware. We now start using it to actually drive back into the requirement section with our customers. And by the way, it's been a great partnership. Digital transformation. We're doing virtual reality quality inspections now. So I've got DCMA and DCAA sitting with me on the floor. They'll put the goggles on and they'll verify that way. I mean, there's just ways to go faster, ways to leverage the tools that we all have today to then use the time that we save to go do the more exquisite activities, to do the advanced technology, do those demonstrations that I talked about earlier.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Robert. It's such a pleasure you joining America's Future Series. We're grateful to all the sponsors for this program. I also want to thank you and Lockheed Martin for all your support of Space Foundation, our annual symposium, and our educational programs. It's a great partnership we have with you and all the things you're doing to make space available to everyone. Like you said, space is for all of us. So thank you. And I will turn it back over to our hosts. And thank you again, and wishing you a fantastic week.
Thanks, Shelli. Appreciate it.
And Robert, we ditto what Shelli just said. Thank you so very, very much. Great job. Incredible information. We really appreciate it. And Shelli, well done. Shelli Brunswick, you got a new job. You can be our moderator of the year. How's that?
I'll take it. I'll take it. Thank you so much. And as always, it's an honor to be part of America's Future Series and serve on your board of directors. So thank you for inviting me today.
Right. Shelli Brunswick and Robert Lightfoot, thanks to you both. Well done. Well done.